Staff have made the new center one of the most interesting new institutions in Boston. We've been led and generously supported by our board chair, Paula Sidman, right over there, Paula Sidman. Her father, Norman Leventhal, our past chair, Ron Drucker, and one of our very dear board members, Robert Beal, who is also here. I thank each of our board members for their brainpower and for their support. The new center is transitioning from an organization that was heavily reliant on the support of its visionary founders to one with a broader and deeper base in the community. And tonight's event has been wonderfully championed by our overseers, which is led by Irma Mann. And Barry Weissman. And our host committee, which is chaired by Bonnie Margulies and Cyril Rossman. So I think you know that these are formidable people, and they are tireless advocates and champions for us. We sincerely thank our underwriters for support of tonight's event, Michael and Annette Miller, and Chip Staley and Kimberly Krause, TPW Financial. Kimberly, where are you? Back there, waving. And a very generous anonymous donor contributed to tonight, so thank you, anonymous donor. As soon as we heard that Arts Emerson was presenting Hershey Felder in Maestro Leonard Bernstein, we knew it was a perfect event for the new center. It combines entertainment, insight, and a local connection to the quintessential Jewish son of Boston. We believe that our programs bring you a little something extra that you wouldn't get anywhere else, and that something extra tonight is Alexander Bernstein, son of Leonard Bernstein and president of the Bernstein Foundation. Please welcome Alexander Bernstein.
Thank you, Christian, so much, and thank you to the new center for inviting me to Boston and having the opportunity to come back and feel all the great old emotions and really, truly, yes, and feel the love, and it's wonderful. It's great to see all of you. My earliest recollection of Boston, Newton to be precise, 127 Walcott Road, to be even more so, is visiting my grandparents, Sam and Jenny, at their house. I must be 3 or 4 years old, around 1959, and I'm with my older sister Jamie, who's around 6. Our parents are not there, traveling, I suppose, so it's just us and Grandma and Grandpa. Mostly, I remember Sam sitting in his chair by the fireplace reading his Talmud. He was the son of a scholar back in the shtetl in Russia, Berestov. His mother out in the fields farming. But he never lost his fascination with Talmudic study. Grandpa smells of sea breeze, an all-purpose aftershave, cologne, disinfectant, what have you. The rest of us are watching TV. Grandma's lap is enormous. Jamie and I vie for it constantly. A perfect picture of suburban domestic tranquility. Apparently, it had not always been so. Back in 1917, it seems that it took a lot of a wooing and a courting, and many trips to Lawrence, asked for Sam to get Jenny to take him seriously and marry him. But he was an up-and-coming young man in business, heir of Savon Supplies, and anything beat working in the mills for Jenny. They honeymooned for one night at the old Essex house down by South Station. Louis Bernstein was born in August 1918. A fine name, Louis, but there were already 2 of them in the family, so they started calling him Lenny. When he was 16, he drove into Boston and had it changed legally to Leonard. As Sam's fortunes rose, they moved from Lawrence first to Mattapan, then to Alston, then Revere, then Roxbury. 5 apartments in 5 years in Roxbury. And then, finally, with Grandpa's rare good fortune during the Depression, ended up in Newton. My Uncle Burton tells about the thrill of living down the street from Dom DiMaggio.
Oh, yes.
And he said he acted like a neighbor. For somebody from New York is amazing. My father, on the other hand, often talked about the constant discord in his house, arguments mostly about money, but about most anything, often Jenny's absent cooking skills. He even wrote a short opera on his honeymoon, amazingly, called Trouble in Tahiti, on the subject of marital rancor in suburbia. The father's name in the piece is actually Sam. The nerve of this guy. But there was a solid family life based around their Jewish faith that kept them going. That Jewish faith led my father to a lifelong love for and devotion to Israel that brought him there to perform during the war in 1948 and again in the years afterwards. His kinship with the Israel Philharmonic was among his strongest ties to any orchestra. His Jewish life also led him to a life of asking questions, of curiosity, of lifelong learning, and a didactic streak that compelled him to share what he knew and felt with as many people as possible, whether in person, in a hall, or on the air. A regular rabbi of sorts himself. Shirley, his sister, was born in 1923, and Bertie, his brother, in 1932. Temple Mishkan Tefillah was the congregation to which they belonged. It is there where my father became enchanted by the cantors singing, the sound of an organ and of the choir. It was there where he was bar mitzvahed. Many years later, in 1968, at another location, Mishkan Tefillah was where I had my own bar mitzvah. I was so happy to have been able to make my grandpa proud the year before he passed away. Along with the music he heard at Temple, Lenny listened constantly to the radio, absorbing every kind of music, jazz, classical, blues, and one day a piano arrived in the house. His Aunt Clara was moving and had nowhere else to leave it. Hershey will fill you in on the rest of that story in a little while. Summers were spent in Sharon, where Lenny rounded up the rest of the kids and put on productions of Carmen and Pirates of Penzance and who knows what else. He was playing the piano and many of the parts himself, male and female, and enlisting young Shirley for many of the rest. After the years at Sharon, he became a counselor at Camp Anoda near Pittsfield. It was there that he met his dear friend and future collaborator, Adolph Green. Our families, with Betty Comden and her family, spent a lot of time together over the years. With his newfound confidence and deep knowledge of his musical gifts, Lenny thrived, despite his fights with his father over paying for piano lessons and so on. He ended up at the Boston Latin School. One of the most moving moments of my life since my father's death was about 15 years ago. Boston Latin added his name up on the frieze in the auditorium, alongside other distinguished alumni like Emerson and Adams. It was an extraordinary validation of everything he might have dreamed. A Jewish artist, teacher, and scholar with immigrant parents become a celebrated, truly American figure at the Boston Latin School, no less. And imagine what Sam would have thought of that. Lenny devoured knowledge of all kinds of Latin, became profoundly interested in history, poetry, philosophy, anything and everything. He became what he later hoped all students could become through engagement with the arts and artistic processes, a lifelong learner. This continued, of course, at Harvard, where he wrote, played, and conducted music, even though there was no formal music department. How he loved Harvard. He loved the intellectual stimulation, of course, but I imagined him feeling as though he had really arrived. a handsome Harvard boy with talent, FDR in the White House, and a limitless future. It must have felt perfectly logical, if magical years later, to have been a frequent guest at the Kennedy White House. I followed my father to Harvard, though hardly in his footsteps, graduating in 1979. During my freshman year, in fact, he was delivering his Harvard Norton lectures. I enjoyed walking over to his rooms at the top of Quincy House for a good meal and lively conversation. It was also such a pleasure in those years to visit my grandma, then living in Brookline on Route 9, and have dinner at a nearby restaurant with her and her sisters, Bertha and wonderful Dorothy. Tonight, in fact, Dorothy's two sons, Andrew and Stephen Goldstein, are with us.
Wow.
There's Stephen. My father's first experience in a concert hall was, of course, here at Symphony Hall. His father surprisingly took him. He couldn't believe the sound of the orchestra in that hall, and this magnificent, powerful maestro, Serge Alexandrovich Kusevitsky, I am Alexander Serge in his memory, that this man could make this happen. All that force, all that beauty with the wave of a wand. Years later, Lenny would join Kusi, as he came to call him, at Tanglewood. It was there that he would conduct his first concert. It was there also, alas, that he would conduct his last. In between, he made it an essential part of his life to visit Tanglewood in the summers. There was something magical about the place for him. For me, too. I worked there as a guide for 4 summers. Nothing, I think, gave him more joy than working and playing with the musicians there. The BSO, of course, yes, he knew so many of the players there from when he was a student at Tanglewood, but especially the students. No matter how low he may have been feeling when he arrived, he became a younger and a happier man. The air, the trees, the memories, and it was always there. The passion for teaching and learning always gave him new life and new hope. It is this legacy of a love for learning and teaching that we are carrying forward with Leonard Bernstein Center's Artful Learning School Reform Model. artfullearning.org. Write it down. We work with schools all over the country, helping teachers put the arts and the artistic process at the very center of their curriculum, integrating all disciplines. The sheer joy, engagement, fun, energy, and profound personal experience that the arts provide become a springboard for a life of curiosity and creativity, lifelong learning. Thank you, Boston, for nurturing and helping to create this legacy, this man. Thank you very much.
Special insight we just got into Alexander Bernstein and his coming of age in Boston and to you. So, you can keep eating and drinking. We should go over to the Paramount at about, I'd say about 15 minutes. You should all have your tickets, which were given to you when you come in at the front door. And we look forward to seeing you for a wonderful evening. Thank you for being with us.